Emma woke up to a peaceful morning. The sun was shining softly through the curtains of her small but warm living room. Her little baby, Lily, had just finished her nap and was smiling in her crib, making soft giggling sounds that always melted Emma's heart. Life was not always easy for Emma as a young mother, but moments like this made everything worth it. She loved watching her daughter grow day by day, learning new sounds and new movements, and she wanted to capture every memory in her heart forever. That morning, Emma decided to prepare lunch while keeping an eye on Lily. The house smelled faintly of fresh bread she had baked the night before, and everything felt calm. Sitting near the sofa was Max, the family's German shepherd. He was a large dog with strong muscles and a thick coat of fur. His deep eyes always followed Emma and Lily everywhere they went. Max was not just a pet. To Emma, he was like a guardian who had stood by her side since the day her husband brought him home. Still, Emma remembered clearly how some of her friends and neighbors reacted when they learned she had a German shepherd, living under the same roof as her baby. They would say things like, "A baby and a dog that big? Are you sure that's safe?" Or, "Those kinds of dogs can be dangerous, you should be careful." At first, Emma herself felt nervous too. Max looked intimidating to those who did not know him. His size alone was enough to make strangers step back. But with time, Emma had come to trust him. He never showed anger or aggression toward Lily. In fact, he seemed protective of her from the very first day they brought Lily home from the hospital. Still, as a mother, Emma never took chances. She usually kept Lily in her crib or playpen whenever she had to step away, and she always made sure Max was calm before letting them near each other. She believed in caution, because she knew how fast an accident could happen with a baby around. Babies were curious and had no idea of danger, and dogs, even the most loyal, were still animals with instincts. That day, though, everything seemed normal. Lily was lying on a soft blanket near the couch, kicking her legs happily and playing with a small stuffed toy. Max was stretched out just a few feet away, his big head resting on his paws. Emma looked at them and smiled. It gave her a warm feeling to see how comfortable they were around each other. She thought about how lucky Lily was to grow up with a companion like Max. The phone suddenly rang from the kitchen. Emma hesitated for a moment. She looked back at Lily and Max, both calm and happy. The phone continued ringing, and she felt a small rush of urgency. It could be something important. "Just a second," she whispered to herself, convincing herself that nothing could go wrong in such a short time. She stepped quickly into the kitchen, answering the phone. As she spoke for those few seconds, her mind was half in the conversation and half on her baby in the living room. She felt a twinge of guilt. A voice inside her head reminded her of all the warnings she had heard. Never leave your baby alone with a big dog. She wanted to hang up quickly, to return to Lily. Her heart was unsettled, as though something could go wrong at any moment. It was less than a minute when she ended the call and walked back toward the living room. But the moment she reached the doorway, her heart nearly stopped. The sight before her froze her in place. Max was no longer lying lazily on the floor. He was standing tall, his strong body hovering near Lily. His teeth were visible as his mouth hung slightly open, and his large paws were just inches from her tiny frame. Lily was looking up at him, her small hands reaching toward his fur. For a terrifying second, Emma's mind went blank. Fear rushed through her chest like a wave. Every warning, every doubt, every story she had ever heard about big dogs flashed in her memory. She imagined the worst, that Max had suddenly turned dangerous, that he might hurt her baby. Panic flooded her thoughts, and she felt her knees weaken. She wanted to scream, to rush forward, but her voice stuck in her throat. All she could do was watch, her breath caught in fear as the huge dog loomed over her fragile little girl. Lily let out a small cry at that moment, a sound that only made Emma's fear grow sharper. The baby's cry echoed through the living room, filling Emma with dread. She thought she had made the worst mistake of her life by leaving them alone even for a few seconds. In that moment of fear, Emma's world slowed down. She saw Max move his head closer to Lily, his nose touching the baby's tiny dress. His big eyes looked sharp and focused, and for Emma, it felt like a storm was about to break loose. She took a step forward, her heart hammering in her chest, ready to pull her baby away no matter what happened. Everything seemed to hang in the air, every second stretching longer than it should. Emma's hands trembled as she prepared herself for the worst. She whispered, "Please, no. Though her voice was so quiet even she could barely hear it. What she saw in that moment would stay with her forever. Emma's feet felt like they were frozen to the floor as her eyes stayed locked on the scene in front of her. She could hardly breathe. Max, the big German shepherd, was standing so close to Lily that it made her heart race faster than ever before. The sunlight coming in from the window made Max's fur glow slightly, and in that moment his large size looked even more intimidating. Emma's mind was spinning. She kept asking herself silently, "Why did I leave for those seconds? Why did I take that call?" Her instincts screamed at her to run forward and grab her baby, but something inside her made her pause. She could see Max's eyes, and they did not look angry or wild. They looked sharp, yes, but not filled with rage. His body seemed tense, yet controlled. Emma's breath trembled as she took a tiny step forward. Lily, lying on her back, stretched her little arms upward toward Max. The baby's small hand touched the thick fur on his chest. Instead of reacting harshly, Max lowered his head slowly, sniffing her clothes. Emma's pulse pounded. Her imagination created terrible pictures in her mind, and she wanted desperately to end them by rushing in. But at the same time, she noticed something unusual. Max's body wasn't leaning in to harm. It was leaning in as if he was guarding. Her eyes flicked quickly around the living room, trying to understand what was happening. That's when she noticed Lily's position. The baby had been crawling slightly forward on the blanket, and now she was very close to the sharp wooden corner of the coffee table. One more movement, and she might have hit her little head against it. Emma gasped softly, realizing what Max was doing. Max's front paw moved gently, nudging at the blanket as if to keep it from sliding further. His nose pressed against Lily's dress, not to bite, but to stop her from going closer to the hard edge. Emma blinked in disbelief. Her fear started to shift into confusion. Could it be that Max wasn't threatening Lily at all? Could it be that he was saving her? Lily let out a soft laugh, a baby giggle that filled the room like a spark of light in Emma's fear-filled mind. The sound startled Emma, but then she realized her baby wasn't scared. Lily was enjoying herself. She tugged at Max's ear with her tiny fingers, and the big dog stayed still, allowing her to explore. Emma's hands, still trembling, covered her mouth. She felt tears sting her eyes. A few moments ago, she was certain her child was in danger, but now she was watching something completely different. She was watching loyalty in action. She was watching a silent guardian do exactly what he was meant to do: protect. Emma slowly stepped closer, her heart still unsure. She whispered, "Max." Her voice shook, but Max turned his head toward her calmly, his dark eyes steady. There was no wildness in them, only focus. He wagged his tail slightly as if to say, "I've got her. She's safe." Emma knelt down carefully beside them. Her hand reached out and touched Max's strong back. The warmth of his fur gave her comfort. She looked at Lily, who was now clapping her hands with joy, completely unaware of the drama her mother had just lived through. To Lily, this was just playtime with her best friend. Emma could hardly believe what she had witnessed. What moments earlier looked like a nightmare was actually a miracle of trust. Max had sensed the danger before she did. He acted quickly, moving his body to block Lily from harm. He had placed himself between the fragile baby and the sharp edge of the table without hesitation. Her tears finally spilled over. Relief mixed with gratitude in her heart. She bent forward and picked up Lily, holding her close to her chest. She could still feel the fast beating of her own heart, but now it was softening. She kissed Lily's head again and again, whispering, "You're safe. You're okay, my love." Max sat beside them, his ears perked up, his body still alert as if he was waiting for more instructions. Emma looked at him with new eyes. She had always trusted him, but she had also carried a hidden fear deep inside, the kind of fear that came from other people's warnings. Today he had shown her the truth. He was not just a dog. He was a protector, a silent guardian who watched every step her baby took. The shock of the moment still lingered, but Emma now felt awe mixed with that shock. She thought about how quickly her mind had judged what she saw. One image of Max's teeth near her baby and she was ready to believe the worst. Yet the reality was the opposite. His teeth were not a sign of aggression. They were part of his attempt to gently pull her dress back from the table's edge. Emma rocked Lily in her arms, while still kneeling beside Max. The baby reached toward him again, giggling, wanting to touch her furry friend. Emma let her, this time with no fear. She whispered softly, "Good boy, Max. You're our hero." The house grew quiet again, but inside Emma's heart there was a storm of emotions. She thought about what could have happened if Max wasn't there. Lily might have hit her head, and that thought made Emma shiver. Instead, because of Max, nothing bad had happened. She was safe, untouched, and even happier than before. Emma leaned back against the couch, still holding Lily, and Max lay down at her feet. The room felt different now. It was no longer just a living room where a baby played and a dog slept. It had become the place where Emma saw the true meaning of loyalty and protection. She promised herself she would never forget what happened in those few seconds. She realized how quickly life could change, how one moment of fear could turn into a lesson of love. She also understood that sometimes things are not what they first appear to be. Fear can blind us, but truth, when it shows itself, can surprise us in the most powerful ways. As the afternoon sun shifted and shadows grew longer in the room, Emma stayed close to her daughter and her dog. Her heart, though still beating hard, carried a new kind of peace. She knew from that day forward, Max would always be more than just a pet. He was family. He was a guardian angel wrapped in fur. And even though the memory of her fear would stay with her, it was now tied to something greater. The shock that turned into gratitude, the fear that turned into trust, and the moment when she realized that sometimes the very thing we fear is the one thing keeping us safe. Emma sat still on the living room floor with Lily in her arms and Max lying close beside them. Her thoughts swirled like a storm, replaying the moment again and again. She could not stop seeing the picture in her mind, her big dog towering over her baby, his teeth showing and her heart almost stopping from fear. Then came the next image, Max using his body to shield Lily from the sharp corner of the table, keeping her safe in a way no one expected. The shift from terror to relief was so powerful that Emma almost felt dizzy. As she rocked Lily gently, she began to think more clearly about what had truly happened. For weeks she had listened to warnings from people, neighbors shaking their heads, friends telling her that German shepherds were too big and too unpredictable around babies. They said things like, "A mother should never take such risks," or "One mistake and it will all be over." Those words had planted seeds of doubt in her heart, even though she had seen nothing but gentleness in Max. But now she had proof with her own eyes. Max had not been a danger, he had been a protector. The thought filled her with deep gratitude and also shame. Gratitude for his quick action that saved her daughter from harm, and shame for the fear that had made her almost see him as an enemy. She reached down and stroked his head, whispering softly, "I'm sorry. Max, I should have trusted you more." His ears perked up, and he wagged his tail as if he understood. Later that evening, when Lily was asleep in her crib, Emma sat with a cup of tea in her hands and watched Max lying near the door. The house was quiet, but her mind was not. She kept replaying the scene, but this time with different feelings. Instead of trembling fear, she now felt awe. She realized that Max had acted faster than she ever could have. If she had been the one to stop Lily from crawling, she might not have noticed in time. It was Max's sharp senses that caught the danger before it became an accident. She thought about the bond between children and dogs. It was something she had read about before, but she was now living it. Max seemed to understand things that could not be explained in words. He had instincts, yes, but they were shaped by love. From the moment Lily came into their home, Max had treated her with care. Emma remembered how on the very first night, he had lain by the crib and refused to move until the baby was sound asleep. That was the kind of devotion he had always shown, and she had almost forgotten it because of her hidden fears. The next morning, Emma called her sister on the phone. She wanted to share the story, even though she knew her sister was one of the people who had warned her about keeping a big dog near a baby. As she described the event, how Max had blocked Lily from danger, there was a long silence on the other end. Then her sister spoke, her voice softer than usual. "I guess I was wrong about him. Maybe he really does understand more than we give him credit for." Emma smiled. She felt proud of Max and she wanted the world to know what he had done. Later, when a neighbor stopped by to drop off some baked goods, Emma told her too. At first, the neighbor's eyes widened in shock when she heard Emma had left Lily alone with the dog. But as Emma explained what actually happened, the woman's expression changed. She even leaned down to pat Max on the head, saying, "Good boy, you really are a hero." It was the first time Emma had seen someone outside her family treat Max with respect instead of fear. That small change warmed her heart. Over the next few days, Emma watched Max and Lily more closely. She noticed how he followed her every movement. If Lily crawled toward the edge of the carpet, Max would move his body to stay close. If she picked up a toy and tried to chew on it, Max would bark softly as if alerting Emma. He seemed to be on constant guard duty, always ready to act. Emma began to realize that what happened that afternoon was not a one-time accident. It was part of who Max was. He was not only a pet, but a silent guardian who watched over the most precious part of her life. One evening, as Emma sat on the couch with Lily in her arms, she remembered her own childhood. She had once been afraid of big dogs, too. She thought about how her father used to tell her stories about loyalty, about how animals sometimes showed purer hearts than people. At the time, she never believed it fully. But now, watching Max rest his head on Lily's lap while the baby played with his ear, she finally understood what her father had meant. Emma also noticed something else: her baby's joy. Lily was never afraid of Max. Her little hands would reach for him. Her laughter would fill the room whenever he wagged his tail or licked her cheek. There was trust in that laughter, a trust that came naturally because Lily had never seen him as a threat. Babies see the world simply. They don't judge by size or appearance. They see love and they respond to it. That was what Lily saw in Max. Love. Emma thought about how different her own reaction had been. Fear had blinded her. She almost shouted, almost rushed in, almost broke the bond between dog and child because of her assumptions. But she had stopped just long enough to see the truth. She was grateful she had paused, grateful she had not given in to panic too quickly. That night, as she tucked Lily into her crib and watched Max settle down nearby, she whispered to herself, "He's part of this family. He always has been, and today he proved it more than ever." Her heart felt lighter than before. She realized she didn't have to carry the weight of fear anymore. She could choose trust, not blind trust, but trust built on proof, on action, on love shown again and again. And in that realization, she felt peace. Emma's heart was still carrying the memory of that shocking moment days later. Every time she looked at Max, she saw more than a dog. She saw the guardian who had acted faster than she could, the friend who had stood between her daughter and harm without hesitation. What once felt like an ordinary life now seemed different. She no longer looked at Max with quiet doubt. She looked at him with deep gratitude and a sense of wonder. One morning, as she pushed the stroller outside for a walk, neighbors waved from across the street. Some of them had seen Max before and often whispered about his size. A few even made small comments in the past, warning Emma not to leave him too close to her baby. But now Emma carried a new story within her heart, and she wanted to share it. At the park, she sat on a bench while Lily rested in her stroller. Max sat proudly at her feet, his ears alert and his eyes calm. A woman she knew from the neighborhood approached, glancing nervously at the large German shepherd. "I still don't know how you manage with such a big dog around the baby," the woman said, shaking her head. Emma smiled softly. She didn't argue or defend herself right away. Instead, she leaned forward and began telling the woman exactly what had happened in her living room that day. She described how she left for just a moment, how she returned to see Max standing over Lily, how her heart had almost stopped, and then how she realized that he had not been a threat but a savior. The woman's eyes widened as she listened, and her face softened. "So he really protected her?" she asked with surprise. Emma nodded firmly. "Yes, he acted before I even knew there was danger." Word spread faster than Emma expected. Within a week, several of her neighbors were talking about Max's bravery. Children who once crossed the street to avoid walking near him now pointed with curiosity. Adults who once judged him harshly now asked questions about how he behaved with Lily. The story was changing how people saw him. Emma felt proud, but she also felt something deeper, a lesson she wanted to carry in her heart. She had learned how quickly fear could mislead, how fast people judged without knowing the truth. She herself had been guilty of that in those first seconds when she saw Max's teeth and body towering over her baby. Yet beneath what looked frightening, there had been love and protection. That lesson grew stronger every time she watched Lily with Max. The baby's laughter seemed to grow louder each day as Max became her constant companion. If Lily crawled across the floor, Max followed, keeping close but gentle. If she dropped her toy, Max nudged it back with his nose. Emma often caught herself smiling at these little scenes, her heart filling with peace. One evening, her parents came to visit. They had also been doubtful in the past, especially her father, who had once told her, "Dogs like that are too strong for a baby's world." Emma invited them into the living room, where Lily sat playing on the carpet and Max lay close by, keeping watch. Her father frowned at first, but Emma gently began telling the full story, just as she had told her neighbors. As she spoke, her parents' expressions softened. Her mother's eyes grew moist and her father leaned back in his chair, nodding slowly. When Emma finished, there was silence for a moment, then her father said, "I guess I was wrong. He's not just a dog. He's family." Hearing those words felt like a gift to Emma. It meant the doubts and fears that had hung around her home were finally beginning to fade. Later that night, when her parents left, Emma sat quietly with Lily asleep in her crib and Max resting at her feet. She thought about all the changes in just a few days. People now saw Max differently, and so did she. But the real change was inside her heart. She no longer questioned whether she was right to trust him. She knew it beyond all doubt. The more she thought, the more she realized that motherhood itself was full of lessons like this. It was about learning to see clearly even when fear tried to cloud the truth. It was about recognizing that love often came in surprising forms. Sometimes it came in the form of a baby's smile. Other times it came in the form of a dog's protective instincts. Emma felt thankful. She whispered a small prayer of gratitude that night, thanking life for giving her both Lily and Max, two souls who had filled her home with love. As days passed, Emma noticed how Max's presence also gave her strength. She no longer felt alone in protecting her child. She knew that while she cooked, folded laundry, or even just stepped into another room, there was another set of watchful eyes making sure Lily stayed safe. That thought filled her with comfort. At the same time, she promised herself not to take unnecessary risks. She understood the importance of balance, never being careless, but also never doubting the love that was proven in action. She began to place Lily on the blanket more often with Max nearby, and each time she watched the bond between them grow stronger. Visitors who came to the house witnessed it too. Friends who had once warned her now shook their heads in amazement when they saw how gentle Max was with Lily. Some even admitted they had misjudged him. Emma smiled each time, feeling proud not only of Max but of the lesson he had taught everyone around him. One afternoon, as Emma watched her daughter crawling with Max beside her, she realized something important. This moment wasn't just about a dog saving a baby. It was about trust, about the power of love that often hides beneath surfaces that seem frightening. It was about never underestimating a bond built on loyalty. Her heart swelled with pride as she whispered, "You're not just a protector, Max, you're part of her story, part of her childhood, part of this family forever." The room was quiet except for Lily's soft laughter and Max's steady breathing. To Emma, it felt like the safest place in the world. And as she sat there, she understood that what once had shocked her had now become the strongest proof of love she had ever seen. The days slowly turned into weeks and weeks into months, but the memory of that afternoon never left Emma. Each time she looked at Max, her heart filled with gratitude. She could still recall the moment of fear, the shock in her chest, the sight of her baby lying under the protective shadow of her German shepherd. Yet now that memory no longer frightened her, it comforted her. It reminded her that her family was never truly alone. Max was always there, watching, guarding, loving in his silent way. As Lily grew, the bond between her and Max grew even stronger. She was learning to crawl faster and trying to pull herself up on furniture. Wherever she went, Max followed. If she crawled too close to a chair leg, Max gently shifted his body as if to shield her. If she rolled onto her stomach and struggled, Max nudged her softly, encouraging her to try again. To anyone who walked into Emma's home, it was clear. Lily and Max were more than baby and dog. They were inseparable companions. Emma sometimes sat quietly and observed them together. She would smile as Lily's small hand tugged at Max's ear, while he lay patiently, never moving away. She would laugh when Max licked her daughter's tiny fingers, making Lily squeal with joy. These small, everyday moments were proof of something greater than words. They showed a trust that was pure, natural, and unbreakable. Friends and family who once doubted Max began to change their minds completely. Emma's sister, who had once warned her never to trust such a large dog with a baby, visited one afternoon. She watched Lily play with Max, watched how gentle he was, and finally admitted, "I think I judged him wrong. He's not just gentle, he's protective. It's like he understands she's his responsibility too." Emma smiled proudly. "Yes," she answered softly. "He's more than a dog to us. He's family." One evening, as the sun set and painted the living room in shades of orange and gold, Emma sat with Lily on her lap. Max lay at her feet, his big head resting calmly on his paws. The moment felt warm, safe, and perfect. Emma whispered to her daughter, "You'll grow up with a guardian who loves you just as much as I do. Remember this bond always, because it is rare and precious." Her words were soft, but Max seemed to understand. His ears twitched and his tail gave a small wag. Emma felt tears sting her eyes, not from fear this time, but from joy. Years passed quickly. Lily learned to walk, and Max was always by her side. When she stumbled, he was there to catch her with his strong body. When she cried, he stayed close until she stopped. When she laughed, his tail wagged like a rhythm to her happiness. Emma often found herself telling the story of that one afternoon to others. She would begin by explaining her fear, how she thought she had made the worst mistake leaving Lily alone for a few seconds, and then she would describe the truth that followed. Each time she told the story, people listened with wide eyes, sometimes gasping, sometimes smiling, but always touched. The story became a part of family history, one that Emma promised herself she would tell Lily when she was older. She wanted her daughter to know that she was protected by more than just her mother's arms. She wanted her to know about the silent guardian who had shocked them all by showing a heart bigger than anyone had imagined. Emma also realized that Day had changed her as a mother. It taught her to trust more deeply, to look beyond fear and to see the truth in actions rather than appearances. It reminded her that protection does not always come in the form we expect. Sometimes it comes in the form of strong paws, watchful eyes, and unconditional loyalty. As Lily grew into a toddler, she started forming her first words. One of the earliest words she learned was Max. Each time she said it, Max's ears perked up and his tail wagged happily. It was as though he knew that he held a special place in her little heart. One summer afternoon, Emma sat on the porch watching Lily run in the yard with Max close behind her. The air was warm and the sound of laughter filled the space. Emma thought to herself, "This is the life I always dreamed for her, safe, joyful, and full of love." She felt a deep peace knowing her child had more than just a mother watching over her. She had a lifelong friend who would never let her down. As time went on, people in the community came to admire Max. They no longer whispered warnings or expressed fear. Instead, they often said, "That's the dog who saved the baby," or, "What a loyal companion he is." Emma felt proud each time she heard those words. She would glance at Max and he would look back at her calmly, as if he already knew what they were saying. Emma knew the bond between Lily and Max would last forever. Even as Lily grew older, the memory of that shocking but beautiful moment would remain a part of their family story. She believed that one day, when Lily was old enough to understand, she would tell her, "You were never alone, not even for a second. Max was there and he always will be in your heart." That night, as Emma tucked Lily into bed, she placed her hand on Max's head and whispered, "Thank you for being her guardian. Thank you for showing me the truth when I almost lost it to fear." Max licked her hand gently, his eyes calm and full of loyalty. Emma stood in the quiet room, looking at her daughter sleeping peacefully and her loyal dog lying nearby. She felt overwhelmed by love. What had begun as one of the most terrifying moments of her life had turned into one of the most treasured lessons. She realized that life often surprises us in ways we don't expect. Sometimes the very thing that frightens us is the thing that saves us. Sometimes what seems like danger at first glance is actually love in its strongest form. And so the story ended not with fear, but with gratitude, not with doubt, but with trust. Emma knew she would carry that memory forever, not as a scar, but as a gift. The shocking sight that once froze her heart had become a reminder of the extraordinary bond between her child and her faithful protector. For as long as she lived, she would never forget the lesson her German shepherd taught her. Love can wear many faces, but the truest form of love is the one that stands guard when you need it most.